Welcome to my little pottery studio. I've been on this clay-covered journey for 5 months now, and I wanted to take you on a tour of my space while sharing what I've learned along the way. Lessons in patience, creativity, and letting go of perfection. The more I dive into self-discovery, the more I find myself going into nature. But as a strong homebody, I eventually answer the call to return home. With pottery, I'm still able to stay connected to the earth. And there's something magical about taking a lump of clay and turning it into something beautiful with your own 2 hands. It's grounding, meditative, and a little bit messy in all the best ways. When I first started, I wanted to overthink about placement and organization like I normally do. I loosened up and I just got started messy. As I worked more on the craft, I realized that I needed a different layout to streamline the process of moving from wedging, throwing, drying, trimming, and glazing. It became painfully obvious that I needed more countertop and shelf space. But being limited to half of a hallway really encouraged me to be creative with thoughtful organization and to be more mindful about the tools and the purchases I made. You really don't need a ton of fancy tools. A few well-loved basics go a long way, and sometimes the simplest techniques create the most beautiful results. I even played with the idea of a griffin grip, but I realized that it was just one more thing that created a different mess, when a more mindful and simple technique would work just fine. One of the biggest lessons pottery has taught me is not to rush things. If you try to move too quickly, you end up with cracks at the base of your mugs and along the handles. Pottery is a slow process and requires patience. And even when you think you do things perfectly, sometimes it will still crack. It makes me appreciate that it's not just a destination of having a great product, but I also enjoy the journey and the lessons learned through success and failure. Sometimes I begin throwing with the intention to make, say, a large mug, but something happens and I'm forced to quickly change it to something else. Something unplanned, but still full of potential to be beautiful. Sometimes I would have never even planned to make something that looked like what I would create. And sometimes I fall more and more in love with the item I created on the spot every time I see it. There's a freedom in letting go of perfection and just allowing the process to be what it is. There's always something new to try. Different clay bodies, carving techniques, or glazes that surprise you. I've attempted to make these napkin rings, and I've learned so much about the properties of clay. Trying to force it from one shape to another, and how its history can cause it to end in catastrophe. Similar to people, I guess, our history might be the very thing that's holding us back from change. And perhaps all we need, just like clay, is to understand why we may have certain triggers, and perhaps put ourselves in the best environment to encourage change. It's a balance of control and surrender. Learning the technique, but also letting the clay do its thing. More than anything, pottery has become a form of self-care for me. The way the wheel spins, the feel of the clay, it brings me into the present moment like nothing else. When I'm here, I'm not thinking about my to-do list or the million things I should be doing. It's just me, the clay, and the process. This little space has become my sanctuary, a place to create freely and just be. So if you've ever thought about trying pottery or any creative hobby, this might very be your sign to start. You don't need a perfect setup, and you don't need to be good at it. Just start, play, and see where it takes you. Thanks for coming along on this journey of my home studio tour and my journey so far. If you have any questions or you just want to chat about pottery, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. You like it? There is a matching